Non-fungible plants. Non-fungible plants. So you take any type of digital information, like an MP3, like your music, like your latest Blondish track, you can synthesize that into a DNA molecule. AGCT representing the zeros and ones in a digital media. Now you have a physical DNA molecule, okay? You take that DNA and you put it inside a plant. It's called transfection. Go inside a plant. Any of this living materials, you put the DNA inside there, okay? And now your music is literally stored inside the plant. And that's a non-fungible plant. So it's like a non-fungible subject.
All right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and we're back, baby. We're back. So first of all, if you didn't understand the joke from the start, then go watch The Big Short and it will all become clear. I've got a few notes for today's video. I know some people are going to ask. So first of all, fishing was great. Freezer full of fish, happy days, looking forward to eating those. Collected suits, so one step closer to being ready for the wedding. I put out a pensions video. I wanted to mention this. A lot of people seem to think that there was nothing wrong with pensions or whatever. And first of all, it was just my opinion, right? But I'm not sure the logic follows in a lot of places. I wanted to summarize this distrust in pensions by just likening it to the fiat currency system. So I think most people, particularly if you're in the crypto space, are probably not very trusting of banks, right? Because of the 3 rules of banking. The money's not really there, the money's not yours, and of course, it's not real money. And so my view on pensions is kind of just an extension of that. Sure, inside of that pension, I hold stocks. Sure, those stocks are allocated to me, but I can't hold them in my hand. Is the money really mine? And similarly to the banking system, where the deposits you hold or that are owed to you aren't even there either. If everyone tried to go and withdraw their money, the banks would collapse, as we all know. The pension systems suffer from this exact same issue. Is the chance of pensions being completely stolen quite small? I would have thought so, right? I would have thought so. But my point was simply, if I can't hold it in my hand, then I don't really trust it. Sure, you're owed stocks, but they function as an IOU. And this is true of even trading accounts or regular stocks and shares, ISAs, whatever you use. So anyway, that was all I really meant by that. It was not supposed to be a video that said everyone needs to get out of pensions or anything like that. I was just simply saying, I view it the same as traditional banking. I don't really trust it unless I can hold it in my hand. But maybe I am very paranoid. The theme of today is that I'm still posturing defensive. My posturing still remains defensive. So we're going to get into that. Thank you to everyone that tagged me in this. We're going to talk about this, of course. We are starting to see this whole notion of Congress being banned from owning stocks, which of course, if you've been on this channel for a while, you will know has been a staple. This has been printed here. This is why people were tagging me in it, because we've had it printed up here for some time. Ever since the summer of last year, roughly, we've had this up here. And the thesis was that just like they banned the Fed from owning stocks at the top here and let all the Fed officials out at the top before we entered a big decline, they would probably pull the same trick again and ban Congress from owning stocks up here as well. We're going to get into that. First, I want to take you on a detour for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is back in uncorrelated territory, as you can see here. So this is absolutely massive, and this is really important, mostly because if we are going to have this, and this is still an if, this is still to be determined, but if we are going to have this rollover, if it is going to be catalyzed by rate cuts and Congress being banned from owning stocks like I've long suspected it will be, then it would be nice if Bitcoin doesn't suffer this same fate, wouldn't it? So all the time we're uncorrelated and tending towards less correlated with everything else, then that is positive for Bitcoin. The early signs that this Bitcoin consolidation is nearing completion are here. And we can see this from the FSI, the fundamental strength indicator, making a bottom, starting to potentially coil up, tells us to be open to seeing upside. However, the price doesn't quite agree with that as yet. We will get to the charts in a minute. But remember, stocks soar while Bitcoin bores you to death. And then when stocks rest, cryptos revive. And we can see that here. The NASDAQ putting in a big pump whilst Bitcoin consolidates and goes sideways. Then we get a rotation out of stocks and Bitcoin flies. Then we get another sideways event for Bitcoin whilst the NASDAQ does really well, sideways for the NASDAQ whilst Bitcoin does really well, and we continue to see these rotations. So is it likely that the stock market is due for a resting period and that can allow capital to rotate into Bitcoin? I think so. And the reason I say this is I've been pointing at this chart for a while and saying this is the main reason that whilst I've been super bullish all the way from here, all the way up, once we got over the last couple of weeks, once we got into this neighborhood, I started to say that this stock market was getting late in the cycle, that we were probably due for some kind of correction. Not to be confused with a massive stock market crash or a huge plunge, but just that cycles are usually respected. Often we have to enter a multi-week decline period. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sharp decline, or we don't have to necessarily come down and retest any really low levels, but sentiment needs to be reset. And therefore, we're right around the time when we can start to expect to see a sentiment flush occur. Now, if we look at the dates down here, this is July, August. We're at the end of July. So if I try to eyeball this as best as I can, we're roughly about here at the moment. So it tells us to be open to seeing a sort of flush out of sentiment, a reset. All the late bulls that have flipped bullish up the top will be flushed out of the system into that weekly cycle low, which is what it serves to do. Remember, it serves to flush the sentiment before then we can reverse higher. And it's at this point, I believe, the best opportunity is in front of us since the lows back in October. As I keep saying over and over again, we should be able to wait for a swing, get long in this neighborhood with a stop below wherever the low forms. And in the worst case scenario, we should get a multi-week rally from the lows to take part in, to capture. And in the best case scenario, and my base case is still that the best case scenario will unfold, we should get a big stock market rip to new all-time highs. Then the question becomes, do we see Congress ban stocks? Do they start cutting rates? And do we get this plunge? As ever, one day at a time, we'll get to that. But remember, Bitcoin is set to see some inflows, assuming this stock market is going to make its weekly cycle decline. So things are looking up for Bitcoin in the short term. We've also got a signal that called every single bull market parabola without fail, having just flashed. And so in blue here, we have the Bitcoin Dixie correlation coefficient. And you can see every time that it makes a low below the bottom line and then coils back up and recovers that line, Bitcoin enters large parabolas. And this is the exact signal that we have at this moment in time. So again, more suggestion that we should be open to seeing Bitcoin rally in the not too distant future. There's good news under the hood. Tesla has added Bitcoin payment code at the back end of its website. So big news here. Even bigger news because France's third largest bank has officially been approved to offer Bitcoin custody and trading to clients. Remember, this is at a time when the FedNow system is officially live. So things are starting to get really, really interesting here. And the longer term picture remains unchanged for Bitcoin. 13 years from today, Bitcoin will likely be trading in the millions per coin. This is not just Hopian. This is the mathematics of exponential growth, S-curve adoption, and network effects. So the longer term picture for Bitcoin has never looked better. Over in traditional finance, things are starting to get really, really interesting. So I'm not allowed to say this word, I don't think. I think I'll get punished for saying this word. But either way, this place was invaded by another place, which I'm sure you're well aware of. And you should always keep an eye on the bonds because the markets always know first. Somebody always knows something and markets always react before the event makes it to mainstream media. So we saw this, we saw bonds sell off absolutely massively for this place. And then it was in this neighborhood here that it was announced that they had indeed been invaded. Since then, we're now starting to see potentially a breakout above these highs and formation of a new uptrend. Now it's still quite early, it could certainly roll over, but this is hinting at some relief rally ahead, potentially off the back of, let's say, settlement news or resolutions for this whole thing that's been going on for some time. And I do wonder if this could be used as fuel to catalyze the final rally in the stock market after we found that weekly cycle low. So of course the big news, at least for this channel and its viewers, is the senator is proposing a ban on the US lawmakers from owning stocks. Thank you to everyone that tagged me. I really appreciate that. And of course, you had good reason to tag me because if you've been watching this channel for a while, we have been expecting this for some time. And now, like clockwork, as we get into all-time highs for the stock market, we're starting to see this be discussed with more and more seriousness. So the US is introducing a bipartisan legislation that would prevent members of the executive and legislative branches, as well as their spouses and children, from trading individual company stocks. It will also ban blind trusts, require increased filing transparency, and significantly increase penalties for violations. So right on schedule, right as the market starts to get very, very close to its all-time high, the stars seem to be aligning to see this potential ban, just like how they banned the Fed back here at the top. In addition to the weekly cycle low, which of course is due, as I've been saying over and over again, we also have bullish sentiment, the highest it has been in a very, very long time. This is exactly what you would see towards the top of a weekly cycle. And as if that's not enough, we're also seeing the meme stock basket outperform the NASDAQ massively. So it may well be time to shake the tree. It may well be time to expect a couple of weeks of downside. I continue to posture defensive, although I also am continuing to respect breakouts. As you can see here, I posted this on Tuesday. I said, look, the Dow Jones looks to be breaking out right here. And so we'll get into the charts and we'll cover this. So starting off with the Dow seems to be breaking out of this range. This has been a very, very long time coming. This red thing here is a measured move target. We add this to the breakout level and you can see that this would put us comfortably at new all-time highs at around 38k for the Dow Jones. So we've got a nice measured move target off the top here. Still pushing this S&P 500 trade, so not much more to say about that. We'll see what happens over the coming days and weeks. The Nasdaq had a nasty day yesterday, as you can see, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here. I'm not going to allow this position to get all the way stopped out. If this starts to close back below this blue breakout level, then I'll just probably cut this trade once we get a close below that on a daily closing basis. I want to protect my profits, and I want to let the ones that are working, the ones that are winning, such as the Dow, I'll keep pushing those ones and cut these. So still holding this, but getting ready to cut it. Speaking of cutting trades, I cut Tesla yesterday on the breakdown, so profit locked in from here. The stop was already choked up to perform damage control, but as you can see, particularly if I zoom in, undeniably a technical breakdown yesterday, so that was closed out, no problem there. We'll lock in the profit and we'll sit on the sidelines. I am more than happy, if I get rid of this, let's clean this chart up a little bit. I'm more than happy to add a long here, something, let's do it like this, I think, something like this. If we can break out of this downward sloping purple resistance line, then I think I'll be more than happy to add a long on a breakout of there. But for now, I'm going to sit patiently on the side. We had plenty of profit between the breakout level and where I jumped out yesterday. Here's Apple. So Apple still pushing this, as you can see. No technical reason to exit this trade. So long and strong, and see what the market can give. Gold is getting into that timing window where you'd expect to see a decline into a daily cycle low. So maybe this is the top for this cycle. Maybe we've got to be open to a few more days of pullback before we can find that daily cycle. And then I think we can swing and go again. So happy days, long and strong, continue to push. The same is true of silver, isn't it? So silver's probably going to follow gold. Could we get some kind of pullback over the next few sessions before it then reverses higher? I think so. But overall, I'm quite confident that we are going to move significantly higher for both gold and silver in the coming days and weeks. Bitcoin still in its range, isn't it? So we'll see what happens from here. As I showed you earlier, underneath the hood, things look pretty good, but the price is the price is the truth, and the truth at the moment is that Bitcoin doesn't want to move higher. So of course it can change, and it can change quickly. If we continue to sort of stay around this level, and particularly if we lose this blue support line at the bottom of this range, then expect to see a decline probably down to this red or this yellow line into that 60-day cycle low around the 13th of August. Ethereum not doing much, so we keep pushing this and we'll let the stop do the worrying on Ethereum. XRP is kind of consolidating, that's to be expected, so up or down is anyone's guess, but I'm going to continue to push this trade and we'll see what the market can give. Lastly, the crypto related equities, been due a pullback for a while. How low it goes is anybody's guess, but I do think dips are for buying, as I've been saying over and over again. So I'm happy to give back some open profit here and look to add rather than to try and get cute with this position, because there's nothing to say this won't end up doing this, particularly if Bitcoin can break out in the next few days. Then of course these crypto related equities are going to follow suit. So more than happy to give back a bit of profit in the meantime and look for trendline breaks and swings to add to. Same is true for MicroStrategy, as you can see. So still got both positions, long and strong. Same is true of Riot, still have both positions. Is some kind of pullback due? Yes. Are we in the middle of that right now? Probably. But break out of there, especially if we can get a bit lower down and then break out, then I think that can be another add for Riot. And the same is kind of true of Marathon, isn't it? So seems like we got a top in for the cycle, but probably going to set some kind of falling wedge or bull flag, whatever you want to call this, downward sloping resistance line and break out of that. And then I think it could be time to add again. So got to allow a bit more time for things to cool off. Still posturing defensive, as you can see, still respecting all of my levels, still ready to duck out of trades as and when they tell me so. Once we can get a few more candles behind us, we should know if we've truly entered the declining portion of the cycle, which we know is due, as I've been saying over and over again. So something like this, more than to be expected, I would have thought. And then, like I keep saying, once we get into this neighborhood, I think it's time to go long and strong across the board. So massive opportunities coming up. But for now, I continue to posture defensive. I continue to see what the market will give. But for now, I continue to posture defensive. I'll be back over the weekend to do a full deep dive TA, examine the closes as always. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves. All the best. Cheers. Bye.